Good evening. Okay, so tonight we get to talk about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and all of the buzz that's going on right now, which is about Spotify, the archetype type podcast, also the sensitivity with whether or not they're also going to be canceled with Netflix. And yes, I spelled canceled with two L's because that's the way they spell it in the UK versus the one. It is correct spelling either way. So we are going to talk about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and we're going to discuss this whole Spotify thing that's going on. I am Deanna from Hot for History. I'm really happy that you guys are here on these lives that we do. It's very interactive, and we just welcome any opinions from any side regarding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Let me know where you're from. Hello from Quincy, Illinois, Central Illinois, Florida, Southern California. I'm so curious to hear what you guys have to say regarding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and the Spotify cancellation. Were you surprised? So very, very briefly, what many of you may not know because it seems so recent to us, but these deals that they signed with Netflix and Spotify go as far back as 2.5 years ago. Hello from Tampa Bay. I hope you're enjoying the sun. So I was just very intrigued by this because there had been a buzz, and we try to, kind of ignore. Sometimes we ignore those rumors until we have them clarified and confirmed. And this definitely was confirmed in the Wall Street Journal and in other, in other publications. The big question was, okay, was this Harry and Meghan wanting to quit? No, they apparently their contract was over $20 million for Spotify. And it looks like they're going to end up with just a couple of million. Word on the street, allegedly. And we'll get into why. So from Texas, Missouri, Quincy, I'm still dealing with the Illinois allergies. It's like a whole new thing. It's very dry here for some reason. It's usually really green. So I'm going to talk about this. Let's discuss this whole thing. And let me know whatever you think and what you know about these deals. So this apparently is because Spotify has, a couple of years ago ended up spending a fortune on all of these name brands. Hello from Houston. And I guess they really thought that Harry and Meghan were going to put them over the top, and they were one of the celebrity, podcasters that they got. But they got burnt because recently both Netflix and Spotify, they said that they've both been hemorrhaging like $50 billion worth of money in the past couple of years. And obviously that's not all about Harry and Meghan. Harry and Meghan had a successful docuseries on Netflix, but everything else that they produce has been like, not so much. So we're going to talk about Netflix too, but I just want to kind of get into the whole Spotify thing and then let me know what you think. I'm not surprised at all. You and I was wrong on them being invited to the royal event. Okay. Yeah, so I guess they were not invited to the Trooping of the Colors either. So this article that I'm going to read is really from The Spectator. This guy is quite opinionated. And it says, as Oscar Wilde said of the death of Little Nell, you would have to have a heart of stone not to laugh. So during Prince Harry's recent travails in court, he was given an in-depth public interrogation about his truth, and he has never faced before, as if this were not enough to disturb the equilibrium of the Sussexes. It has been announced by Spotify. Now, some people say there was a joint statement, but it doesn't look like it was a joint statement. So, we're here to kind of parse that as well. That their archetype podcast launched to disproportionate fanfare in 2020 is to come to an end. In that brief halcyon period for Harry and Meghan shortly after their quasi-abdication, when everything they did seemed to turn to gold, they signed a $20 million deal with the streaming company, and for what, a dozen episodes. Now, this is the main argument, is that they were low producers. Like, they produced 12 episodes in 2.5 years. Like, to think of like what most of us that are influencers do in a week, like, this is ridiculous. It's so easy to just kind of pick a topic, get somebody on, record it. They can even edit it after the fact and put it up. And they average out with that deal like $2 million a podcast. And quite frankly, they weren't very well received. It wasn't like it became really popular. The first week or so, it went to the number one, it was tops, but I think that was because people were curious. So it was not wildly surprising then when Spotify had decided to pull the plug. The company is hardly known for handing out millions of dollars to already wealthy people for little return on their investment. Recently, they talked darkly about a strategic realignment in their podcasting department. They have since fired 200 people in a suitably strategic fashion, presumably in an attempt to make sure that some of the shortfall of that pesky 20 million must have cost them. So they're trying to make it up. So I'm also going to read something from one of the top guys from podcasting at Spotify, because he was very blunt and a little colorful language. Hello, Christine. I should have watched Black Belt Barrister. That's what I hope I said that right. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to read this article because I frankly thought that this was the most fascinating. It's from Deadline, and it says Prince Harry and Meghan Markle called effing grifters by Spotify exec and podcaster Bill Simmons after their split with company. Effing grifters. That's what he calls them. So Bill Simmons, who sold The Ringer to Spotify in 2020 and has risen through the tech company's executive ranks, derided Prince Harry and Meghan Markle on his podcast Friday as effing grifters. Here, I got it, because I just, you guys got to tell me if you agree. The Sussexes and Spotify confirmed Thursday they have parted ways after signing a deal reportedly worth $20 million 3 years ago. 3 years ago, with 12 podcasts. So many people I know. Every one of you here. I don't care if you're terrified of public speaking. You could do 12 episodes in a week. Now, obviously, they require more production. So let's just give them a little bit of leeway. Let's say one a week. If they had done one a week, they would have at least 100 out rather than 12. 12. And by the way, the podcast, apparently they were only really involved in one of the 12. Seriously. Okay, so, and then to have this guy call him effing grifters, and he's an executive at Spotify. The Sussexes, they parted ways. The pact was part of Spotify's surge in spending on podcasting, which they say that they made a mistake about. 200 million Ringer acquisition. More recently, the audio giant has scaled back and laid off staff, consolidating divisions and emphasizing the creator economy instead of big ticket talent. So they're trying to get like your average Joe. We're going back to influencer status. And everybody's saying, by the way, that is where Meghan's going to. So hold on. I'm really curious as to what this guy has to say. Simmons still runs Ringer and is also head of podcast innovation and monetization at Spotify, made the comments on his podcast. Okay, listen, this is his quote. Remember, he's a big wig now at Spotify. The effing grifters. That's the podcast we should have launched with them. He's saying that's what they should have called it. I got to get drunk one night and tell the story of the Zoom I had with Harry to try and help him with podcast ideas, because I have heard that they're really not that creative, either one of them. It's one of the best stories. Now I'm dying to hear what it is, but he doesn't share. Among Archwell podcasts with Archetype, which was hosted by Markle, the show explored the societal forces that have been impeded the progress of women and welcomed guests like Trevor Noah, Mariah Carey, Mindy Kaling. Mariah Carey called Meghan a diva, and Meghan was like, I'm not a diva. And Serena Williams. And by the way, when Serena Williams was on, it would have been so interesting had they gone into her entire career. Same with Mariah, and just, had it be Serena talking as much as possible, but that's not what happened. Markle last April signed with William Morris. And so they're basically saying now that they're going to go somewhere else, and they're going to do a whole new season, but it's going to be somewhere else. And then Simon says, send this guy to the moon. I'm having to rephrase stuff because it's so dramatic. You guys can read it on Deadline. It's called, I'm so tired of this guy. What does he bring to the table? He just whines about SHIT. I can't believe I just spelled it out. I think I could say it. I don't know. I say it a lot, but I'm just being careful. Okay. And keeps giving interviews. Who gives a crap? Who cares about your life? You weren't even the favorite son. This is the Spotify guy saying this. You live in effing Montecito and you just sell documentaries and podcasts, and nobody cares what you have to say about anything unless you talk about the royal family and you just complain about them. Done. Okay, so let's talk. So it sounds to me, again, allegedly, that the split with Spotify wasn't just like, okay, we're not making enough money, so go. This guy, Bill Simmons, is like, they're effing grifters and get the hell out. Like, it sounds like it's a bit firm. And so everybody's saying, hey, does this mean that Netflix is next? Okay, let me see what you guys have to say because I love getting your comments. Okay, I'm going to my EH Bunny. Shabunny, CEH. I never know what to call you. Okay, I agree. Didn't they live in Tyler Perry's house for a year without paying rent? Yes. She hired 17 producers, which means she at least fired like 16 of them. Thought they wanted privacy. I agree. Didn't they live in Tyler Perry's house? We said that they seemed disingenuous all the way. Yes. Grifters. Aha. I know. Well, maybe we're going to have to watch the Ringers podcast in order to find that, because Bill Simmons, very bold. I mean, he was given a spot at corporate, and this is what he's saying. I was like, do I need to check the date on this? Like, was this old? No. Do the early supporters that Stephen, this is a great question. Nobody has been a bigger fan of Tyler Perry than moi. If I could tell you how many times I watched Diary of a Mad Black Woman at every Medea scene in the universe prior, that was me. I mean, I went so far as to basically have a crush on Tyler Perry. It's like, he's, yes. But his whole thing with this, no. So that's a great question. Do the earlier supporters like Perry still support them? Oh, I thought you were asking if the early supporters of Perry still like him. Well, let's talk about that too. So I don't know if I like Perry anymore. Now, I think Perry is still supporting them because he's the godfather of Lilibet, as far as I know. You guys can let me know. Like, what do you think? Okay, so Harry is a whiner. And what they're saying is like, can they create anything unique? Now, they are saying, and this is like a couple articles here, but this is just for visuals. Netflix will produce his Heart of Invictus, which I'm glad about, because all along, he's always felt the most real when he talks about this Invictus games, like without Meghan on the side, like just him in his element, talking about what he's authentically passionate about outside of his whining, outside of his passion for the media. Like, really, he should question the fact that he wants to spend the rest of his life focused on the media and, making that straight. He should focus on what everybody is aligned with him on, which is this Invictus game thing that he's done so well. That's my opinion. And she shouldn't be involved. He should just do his thing. Meghan isn't a good pick. Well, yeah, because there's a million people who could do a podcast and that we would be like, what? Like, all of the people that she had interviewed were good people, like, but she could have like not had this. I don't know. I feel like as women too, we're tired of whining ourselves. Like, we just, so the archetype thing is like us rehashing things that are, I call it phantom feminism. It doesn't mean that we're not still struggling in a way, but I call it phantom feminism because we don't really struggle with certain things that they talk about as much now. So for her to kind of have an entire show about it, it's sort of like been there, done that. Okay. You have to like pull out the stories because they're not as frequent. Now, I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm saying that they're not as frequent. So the whole premise of the show, Harry should do. I personally think that Harry in his element without all of this stuff would have been more intriguing to me on a podcast, interviewing these guys from the Invictus games, highlighting them, just asking them questions. When you listen to any great podcaster like Joe Rogan, he asks questions and he lets the people talk. She didn't let him talk. Like, she wanted to, this was always back on her. So that's my opinion. So Neil Sean reported that Perry calls out Meghan's lies. I would hope so. I want to have hope in Medea again because that man is a genius. Like, I just think he's a genius. And yeah, so you want to see Spare and okay, so who would play Harry? I always thought that Ed Sheeran kind of reminds me of Harry. We have so many actors who could do Harry in Spare. Well, I think the crown this year is going to focus on Harry's age when he was out there in his, you know, outfit during Halloween or whatever, getting in trouble at the costume party. I think they're going to focus on him that year. So, are the rumors of a divorce lawyer true? Okay. Anybody have some substantiating evidence on that? I think that it's been out so long at this point. Like, there's been so many rumors about their divorce that we're all like, there were rumors about Spotify. So I hate to say it, but I always think that it's just rumors. But at this point, it's so widespread, and we're not seeing them like, she was like, they were Velcro. They were Velcro. It was annoying how Velcro-y they were. That's not really a word, but they were like Velcro. So it is weird that we don't see them as much together, but whatever. Okay. So Prince William is hanging Deadline's article on his inspirational board. It has made my day. I mean, yeah, that one was like, you're talking about the effing grifters one, because I think there's another Deadline one. I think there's a second Deadline article that was just as intense. But this one was like, it's sort of like, pardon the pun, but like the emperor doesn't have any clothes on, or the king doesn't have any clothes on. I feel like we've been dealing with this with them for the longest time. Like, just, okay, they're giving them awards. Okay, yay. But do you guys know that they're not really contributing anything? Have you noticed that you can grab somebody just down the street that has more talent? I'm sorry, but there's so many geniuses out there that are never acknowledged because they don't have the prestige. They don't have maybe the money that could be got surrounded by hyper creative people. And I'm just going to say, even in the influencer space, that could hit a home run on the whole podcasting thing. Podcasts are having trouble right now. The podcasting thing they're having difficulty. Why? Because, YouTube's now doing podcasts, video podcasting. Like, there's all these other, like Joe Rogan for Spotify is the guy. Like, he's the main guy. So podcasting is hard, but then it's even worse when you just hire, and it's Spotify saying they made a mistake. When you hire people just because of who they are, and William Morris just signed them as well, rather than what they can produce. And one thing I've learned about this whole thing is you got to get yourself out of the way. People don't honestly even care about your stories until they care about your stories. So if I was leading as a new influencer, all about me all the time, you need to be able to offer people something that they're interested in, so you can have what we've got right here, this interactive kind of a thing, right? I don't feel like that's what they did. It was like, it's me, and then let's throw the other thing in. So they're not really offering value. So nowadays we need to offer value in everything that we do as artists. And I'm telling you, every single one of you could have produced more than 12 podcast episodes sitting in your sweats with a microphone up, maybe a topic, and just having a conversation with somebody. I'm serious. Okay, so Spotify hired them both. Yes, they did. That's a really good point that a lot of people don't understand, is that in the beginning, it wasn't like, okay, well, we're going to have Meghan on here and Meghan's going to do her archetype thing. No, they were both supposed. So that's the other thing. I'm so glad you brought it up, is that two people with all of this money, like my husband's a jazz musician, like I'm surrounded by, my son's a really successful YouTuber. I'm surrounded by talented people. Now, if you all do your stuff, two people in 2.5 years, they should have had 300, 400 episodes between them. He could have interviewed people from the Invictus games. He could have talked to people who are, let's say, expats living in South Africa. Whatever his focus was, she could have done some things. Like she could have talked about what it was like to be an actress, and then interview people. But if they're not whining, they can't produce. They just cannot produce. They cannot produce. I'm just telling you, they cannot produce. And so Harry, I feel like Harry, this may not be a super popular thing because he doesn't look like this now, because he looks like just a whiner now. But outside of his whininess and his overfocus on the media, I think he is an underdog. I think that his natural appeal without Meghan, I feel like he's insecure and feels like he needs her. But I feel like his natural appeal without Meghan and without his whining, I think to backtrack on that, though, like to have us forget about his whining is going to be like a miracle. It's going to be a miracle because we can't forget about it. But if you think about him back in the day, even a couple of years ago, he can sit and have a conversation. I feel like he is naturally more talented than we would think if he would just change his mindset and be more positive and focus on those things. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to go off on a tangent. Okay, is all over the Invictus games. That's what happened. So the first year, I don't know, 2016, 2017. Wait, no, they got married. Yeah. Everybody loved it because Harry was taking charge. He was in charge. He was doing his thing. Then the next time Meghan came along, all they could do is talk about her. Then it was like, what's Meghan wearing to the Invictus games? And it all turned into, oh, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are now at the Invictus games. It changed from it being what it is, or it should be, to this whole look at me kind of a thing. Nobody likes when people are upstaging. And there are ways for them to be just as strong as dynamic while focusing on the subject matter without focusing on themselves. Just saying. But yeah, there were supposed to be more than one podcast, and I appreciate you telling me about that. Okay, wait, Judith and Ryko, I missed this. Which divorce lawyer? I don't know. I think by himself he would be great for charities. Yes, but that book, all she did was talk about her childhood and past. Yeah. Okay, so his book and even though I'm saying I feel like he could, like I feel like he's naturally more talented than he thinks, because I feel like I don't know, but I feel like we're not, it's to erase the collective memory from the past 2 years. It's going to be hard, even from the past year. I think a year ago at this time, they would have been fine, but yeah. I've seen on Twitter that Harry has been meeting with a divorce lawyer weeks ago. Okay, now I heard that, and Lady C, who I don't always believe, but then she ends up being right, but she seems so dramatic. She's saying the same thing. I think a divorce would be very complicated, but and because it's not, here's the thing, when you get married and you're in entertainment, you need to then make a decision and talk to each other about how you want to keep your business things separate. Or if you are partners, then you have to divorce as business partners and stuff. It's complicated. Okay, I have to agree with the guy from Spotify. She was very me, rather than talking about her guests. Yeah, and then he's calling them grifters. And that is not, you guys tell me, is that the first time you've heard them described that way? I've heard, okay, I mostly hear about Meghan being a grifter, that she was a grifter in the past, and she's probably going to be a grifter in the future when she's no longer married to him. But that's what I've heard. Even I could do more than, yes, girl, I am telling you, every single one of us, like, think for a second. Like, I could talk about, I could talk to every one of my friends and give them 12 episodes. I know how to make a really good baked ziti. Like I just made some homemade yogurt in the other room. Yeah, I did. I made some homemade yogurt. I got some organic mushrooms. I could do a whole cooking thing if I wanted to. There are things in our lives that people are interested in. What's happening in this world is, and I noticed this from having conversations with people, I observe this a lot. I intentionally observe this when I'm having a conversation with people. Like, are they going to say, well, hey, well, tell me about yourself? I don't need to talk about myself. I'm fine. But I watch because I want to know if they're more interested in being interesting than interested. We've lost the art of conversation. We've lost the art of being able to engage like this. Like, one thing I like about all of you guys is that, yeah, we kind of all lean in mostly the same direction regarding Harry and Meghan, but we do have people come on that love them, and we still feel like it's okay to have the conversation. But we've lost that, and people want to be interesting. And if you're having a podcast, you have to be almost like Joe Rogan. Honestly, I'm sure he is interesting, but none of us really, like, we're interested in his topics, and he keeps creating viral content because it's about the person and the one thing that makes them interesting. And so we want to watch. And so that's the key. That's the key. Okay. So Meghan has abandoned him in the times that's the other thing. Now, I'm really independent. My husband's really independent, but let me tell you something. If he was going through something like this, or I was going through, he's like right there. And for Harry to go to the coronation by himself, or even going to these court things by himself, I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry. I would be like, hey, you got to be in the UK for 3 or 4 weeks. Let's all go. Let's all go. The family's going to be there. That way, in between your meetings, we'll just be there. We'll have dinner together. We'll go around the country together. That's my family. Like, that's the kind of thing that we do. And it does seem like, we complain when she's too much there, like Velcro, but at the same time, when she's not there at appropriate times. She's there at inappropriate times. Like, she'll go and hold the trophy during his polo match in Santa Barbara, but she won't be there to hold his hand when he's having to deal with, like, scariness being at the coronation in the third row. You both should deal with it together, right? That's what I think. Okay. The Wounded Warriors I've read don't think much. Well, okay. Let me read the whole comment. Much of Harry. Their stock is definitely going down in value. Who cares about Meghan's latest food craze? No, but that hotel gig makes me wonder. Okay. Stephen, you're absolutely right. So, Wounded Warriors, the Invictus games. Yes, we loved that. That was like the golden ticket to Harry's future in media, in my opinion. Then he wrote the book Spare, because he had a network of people who were like, dude has had 2 tours in Afghanistan, even if they kind of protected him a little bit. But he was like the real deal, right? A real guy. He's physical. He likes to, he's just a real guy, right? But then he writes the book about Invictus. He writes the book about, like, the chess pieces in Afghanistan. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? And so now then he just starts to be disrespectful and breaks these codes. Like, you're not supposed to say that. It's one thing to talk about your family like that, which is breaking that code. You break a code with your brothers in the military. No. So yes, the value of even that brand has gone down, because now they're like, wait, because even the vulnerability of the Invictus games, because of what he said, is just heightened. Like, he doesn't even protect. It's like he didn't protect them. He could have protected his family. Like, there's an aspect of honor, and he has not been honorable in many different ways. And that's the thing that ticks us off, and that's going to be hard for us to forget. And so I agree with you, Stephen. Okay. So Meghan's latest food craze. Yeah. I don't even know what they are, but the whole hotel thing. I heard that when he left the coronation, has to get back to Archie's birthday party, but that he hopped a plane to some other hotel. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So, hey, welcome, even though you're late. He's a whiner, and she's a liar. Yeah. I'm not going to disagree. Okay, Stephen Rapp. If a movie was done that reenacted actor pretty good, oh yeah, with a husky voice. So there's so many actors that love to do Harry. I mean, it's funny. Spoken with soldiers he served with. Wow. Did he have people that liked him at the time and who don't now? Is that the thing? Harry is bad for Meghan's brand. Yeah, and I think Meghan's bad for Harry's brand too. Harry is good looking and charming, but he thinks his fame is well deserved. It's not. Yeah. He is good looking. He's charming. He's natural charisma. But now his whole image has turned into this sort of, complainer. Nobody likes a complainer. Nobody likes it. I always talk about this thing where I call understated greatness. I love those types of people who you would not even know. Like my Aunt Pauline not married. She's 90. She just started dating Willard last year. He's 99. And so Willard and Pauline have this amazing thing. They're dating. They see each other every day. Willard was in Battle of the Bulge. Does he talk about it a lot? No. Is he one of the most fascinating men I've ever met? Yes. That's understated greatness. It's like it's this thing that is locked into them. It makes them so attractive. Why? Because they're a man that holds on to his word, and he is honorable and poised. Now, if I start talking to him, he'll tell me things. But he doesn't like when people get too descriptive, because apparently the guys from World War II were like, we're not going to tell anybody what happened here. And most of them are like, unless you really push and ask, right? So I bring up Willard because that's the type of thing that makes a person great, not basically, I keep calling it word vomiting onto the world and being overly into your talk therapy. We don't need to hear it. It's like, we don't want to be, it's like looking at somebody when they're going to the bathroom. We don't really need to see it, Harry, honestly. We don't need to hear every little thing. We know it was hard for you. We're not denying that. But oftentimes what makes somebody great is watching how they get through it. William went through it too. I'm not saying he's perfect. We know he's not perfect, but talk about poise. Like, he's got a little bit more poise and honor. He's not, he's being respectful to his dad, even when they disagree, it's just, yeah. Okay. I want to try to forget about his let's get serious now. His Friar Tuck look and how angry he always seems about how bad he's been treated. They have used people to get money and power, and as soon. Yeah, I don't like to talk about karma that much because it's not necessarily the religion that I'm in, but all that bald talk in Spare about William, isn't it ironic that now all the cameras, wherever Harry is, if the royal family is in charge of the cameras, like at the coronation, oh my gosh, the camera is like right on his head. And he's bald back there. You may not, you know why? He doesn't even think he's bald because he can't see it. That's kind of, it defines kind of the truth of how Harry is in general, is that he doesn't see his own baldness, but he's free to point out everybody else's baldness, right? Isn't that ironic and a metaphor? That crazy Meghan spent like $500,000 on clothes when William gave 500,000 pounds. William gave what she wore. It was disgusting. Yeah. And I did hear that even though William also sued, the papers, that he gave his money to the Invictus games. Yes, Meghan would make a really good Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I think what everybody's saying right now, guys, is that they are more like, well, she's becoming, this is supposed to be an insult, but like to some of us, we're like, why is that an insult? She's gone from celebrity and star and royal family, demoted back down to, at best, an influencer. Like, she can maybe make some money on some ads, but like, she's not going to make it in the world that she wants to, live in. They've blown it with me. I have no respect. Yeah. And he was better. He was better naked in Vegas. Lady C's classic. She is a classic. And yes, what a grifter. Archwell could have hired staff to credit. Yeah, to create the content. And that's the other thing. It's so easy. Like, just get the topics, hire a bunch of people, create. You know what you do? You batch it. If they didn't want to be around all the time, then what you do is you record like 4 or 5 podcasts in a day. You can record like 20 of them in a week. Just do like 2 or 3 long days, because that's what you do when you're in Hollywood. And you could be done with your entire year if you wanted to, except for when current events come up and you want to talk. And now you have all of this backlog. Like, I could work out the production schedule. I literally could work out. So they have somebody who sets up the mics for you. You could even do the video podcast with it. They set up the advertisement for you because it's Spotify, right? And then all you need are bullet points, and you have your guest there and you let them run. Why? Because you can edit it. So even if they talk too much, because it's not like it's live, you just edit it. So you say, okay, we're going to talk for 2 hours. You get 2 hours of content and you break it down for 45 minutes to half an hour, maybe an hour. Okay, you do that. Here's Serena. Okay, now we're going to talk about this. This person's not famous, but here's your guest. Talk about them. Just have conversations with people. You can, like, literally, I don't blame Spotify for being upset. And they could have done something amazing. But the thing is that they are mediocre. She's mediocre, and so is he. Where were they fabulous? As royals. Without the drama, she just naturally fell into shaking hands, being nice, having the beautiful smile on her face, wearing her lovely clothes, being great. She could have done so many amazing things in the UK and around the Commonwealth. And she could have even pushed things to have true change. That's, in my opinion, where they were doing well. This is not working. And you know what? It's not as easy as going, oh, well, we'll just keep pivoting until it's right. In this particular situation, you're not like, I would say to people who are influencers who are starting out, yeah, keep changing things until you get it right. But that's when you're not famous and you don't have like a lot of people watching. I'm incensed. Okay. I could do 12. I could do 12 on my sourdough start. See, like, I want to know. I do want to know what the sourdough starter is. Can they sue Spotify for saying that? Well, I don't know. Because I guess they would have to, I mean, they sue everybody. So, I think it's an opinion. You said they're effing grifters. So it's his opinion. I mean, how do you prove that somebody's a grifter? So he's giving his opinion. And I think he also has a podcast. So that was done on the podcast. They hired 17 producers. That is true. Meghan should have been at the coronation. Yeah, they had producers, but they kept firing them and hiring them, firing them and hiring them. They needed a concept. They needed to stay with the concept. He should have had a concept. They should have had 3 podcasts. He could have had one. She could have had one. I mean, if you're making 20 million bucks, try to give them value ASAP. Why? So you can ask for more money and you have more leverage. Produce, overproduce. If they're giving you $20 million, they want to see, this is like basic. I'm not famous and I know this. Give them tons of content and then they can roll it back. And then you get to see what's good and you do it again. Harry's podcast, Meghan's podcast, and then the specials that they do together. Simple, easy peasy pie. I would say something wrong. I'm not politically correct. Well, there's even room for that. There really is. Okay, for Meghan not to show up was a slap in the face of the monarchy. And that's the thing. You remember how much we went through this? We were talking about it like a million times. My whole thing was like, you know what? Go because you don't want to live with the regret. And by the way, make sure that your kids have access to their grandfather while he's alive. Because the worst thing is when your kid turns to you and go, why didn't we do that when we were younger? Sorry, there's so many trains in this town. It's the best thing ever, but it's loud. Yeah, so she should have gone. She should have gone. The chess pieces, you guys didn't know what I was talking about there, right? When he was saying that he was in Afghanistan and that to him it was just like, hey, there's the target, there's the target. It's just like playing chess. They're just chess pieces. They're not people. He's a weak version, and it does not. That's why guys don't like him anymore. And he was a guy's guy. I mean, the girls liked him too, but he was really more like the guys liked him, but not anymore. You guys, Willard and Pauline. I'm going to try to get video and do a short on them. Imagine, I know I'm changing subjects, being like both being widowers. She goes to a coffee shop. Willard at the time was 98 because it was last year. And he's got this really nice truck. And he's like, I'm looking for a nurse. He's like, well, she's like, I'm not a nurse, but I'm looking for a companion. He's like, you want to go for a truck ride? So she gets in the car. They just go for a ride, and they've been inseparable ever since. Willard is, love him. And they're loving each other for every minute they have together because they found each other knowing that they only have a few years in their lives together. It's amazing. Okay. And I heard that many soldiers are PO'd that Harry said yes, because he said that they were like chess pieces. Oh, okay. Friar Tuck shot. Okay. He can see it because his fro is what? He can or he can't. I don't know. Okay. Meghan versus Renner. Okay. I got to put my glasses on, guys. Okay. Because we got some comments, and then we're going to call it a night. Karma is simply do unto others. Yeah, that's true. We have them do your immediate reaction from the universe. But the bald spot and the bald shaming, like I don't shame anybody for being bald. Honestly, most women, we don't really care. Yes, I guess if you're in your 20s, you start losing your hair. Guys, like really, but the worst thing a guy can do is comb overs and get a weave and then make it like a big deal. I know a guy who's like 65. He's been putting a weave in since he was 30, and the weave just looks bad. So I respect for bald or balding men that accept it. Like, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And for him to call out his hairline, we know that that's a low blow. I love a good bald man. That's just what I'm saying. Men who rock it are fabulous. I agree. It could have been scripted. No one would. And that's the other thing. You don't even have to have a conversation with your podcasts. I mean, you should, but this is what I've done because I've done a lot of interviews where people have interviewed me. What I'll do is I have an actual conversation with them, but maybe I'll have bullet points. Like with this, you just see prompts. You're not always reading these articles, but they're prompts for us to discuss, right? So maybe I'll have bullet points. The other thing that you can do is you'll have sound bites. Maybe a phrase or something that really is on your heart, and you'll just make sure to insert your sound bites. So with a podcast, they could have scripted it for her, given her bullet points. She wouldn't even need to have read the books, although if she wanted to be a really credible host, she would read the books. There are things she could do to keep the production fast and honor the money that they've paid for you, because there's an expectation of producing. Otherwise, you're just taking the money. Now, what they think is that, and I guess this is the answer to kind of like, will they sue them? Is that I don't think they'll sue Spotify because they're probably trying to keep or get or make a deal with how much money they're going to be left with. But something in their contract said that they did need to produce X, Y, and Z. And apparently they underproduced. That is word on the street. That's allegedly. Okay, so let me just get a couple more of these and then we will call it a night. Yes. Okay. Have access to the grandfather because William wants nothing to do with them. It would be so nice if both Archie and Lilibet could have access to their grandfather. That makes me feel really bad. Not only the grandfather, but like even remembering like Princess Anne or remembering all of these people that are part of their lives. and teaching them a little bit about their background and their culture from what they come from, and then that honors the true legacy and DNA as to who these kids are. Like kids, so many people are stripped of their culture, especially when they come to America. And years ago, like there's so many people don't even know, like I'm like apparently like almost 100% German. I've been in Germany except stop in Frankfurt, right? They have the ability. I mean, we are going, by the way, we're going to Germany. I'm planning a trip next year. If you guys are interested, I'm going to put some, I'm probably tomorrow, I'm going to put the link in, and you guys are welcome to come to Germany and Austria with me. I'm planning a trip next April. Sorry, didn't mean to go on a tangent, but like, I don't even know that a lot about that history. And I still have family over there. There is family over there that knows my great-grandfather, so Harry and Meghan's children, like this is Harry's family. Why begrudge them that? And it's an exceptional history. Yes, it's flawed. Yes, it's screwed up, but life is full of, of tension and, bumps and bruises. Like that's the thing, like I want to teach my kids, honestly, is that there's struggle, there's tension, there's arguing, there's battles that we fight, and yet we can come together. And they're not doing that. They're making their kids lose out because of it. Okay, let me see. Where do I find out about Willard? You know what? On this channel, I'm going to be putting up some videos of Willard and Pauline. I will start since I'm here this summer. And the next time I see Willard and Pauline, I will interview them. I did interview them recently, and I will put that up. His name's Willard Simpson. I don't know if you could find his military background or whatever, but Harry was calling his fellow soldiers pawns on a chessboard. UK service is volunteer service. Those men wanted to be on the front line. Yeah, but he also used the chess reference when he was talking about chess pieces and knocking people out. I think Meghan is the one using the kids as pawns against the royals. Yeah, I agree with you. We don't know that for sure. He may be saying, I don't want my kid. We don't know that for sure, but it seems like that. The couple is interesting only for their connection with the royal family. They're not talented until now. They should do something about acting or charities instead of telling bad. Yeah. And that is the key to us knowing whether or not they have, like I feel like it's an insult to the public for them for Netflix and Spotify to just throw money at them, assuming that because they're famous, we'll watch. Now, if they have something of value to produce and they have the royal thing there, the fame or whatever, we're going to watch. But we're not going to watch them continually whine. Nobody likes that, especially when it's about yourself. It's like, we're not interested in how does this appeal to me? Like, what does this do for me in my life? Tell us more about like maybe the history, what it was like with your grandmother. Like, tell us stories, do positive things like that. It's really dysfunctional and mirrors what she did to her. Oh, and that's the other thing. Her father is sickly. Hopefully he's fine right now. But anyhow, her dad hasn't even met his grandchildren. Like, this is the saddest thing. And yes, I actually hate when people throw out the narcissistic, diagnosis or behavior, but it truly is narcissistic when you want to take somebody away from their support, number one, and then you gaslight everybody and you isolate, and then it's narcissistic. It really is. Now, whether she or he, I mean, he's narcissistic in a way too. People can have narcissistic behavior without being narcissists, but it's very narcissistic what they're doing with the grandparents, for sure. It's like, I don't know. It's very sad. They should have come here, kept their mouths shut for 5 years, established themselves. Yeah. There's so many different ways they could have done this. Just come here, live at peace, put your kids in school, become pillars of the community, hang out with people nearby. Like, just do your thing, go back to the UK when you're needed, do some special things rather than, hey, let's go over to America and like crush it financially. Don't worry, we'll figure out what we need to do for that, but we'll just make these deals and we'll figure out what to do after the facts. I love Germany, been there 3 times. The last and my mom's family were Middendorf, a common German name. My family name is Zapf, Z-A-P-F. Okay, so reflection. Okay, the kids then did her. Okay, so I'm going to just take like 1 or 2 more questions or comments. Meghan has visions of building a goop empire on her own. She wants to be known for being bougie. I think she did well with the TIG, with her, blog, but I don't think she'll be able to do what Gwyneth Paltrow has done. I know she's interviewing them, talking to them all the time. No, because Gwyneth was able to sort of hide her entitlement a bit. Meghan, not so much. Gwyneth, was more likable. Like, I just don't see it happening with her. I don't see, I mean, the brands, I don't know the brands that are going to like really align with her. I mean, I know that there will be some, but I don't know which ones will. All right, guys, I am going to call it a night because tomorrow's Dripping of the Color, and we will come back to talk about that tomorrow. And we'll talk about that. Okay, they had to come and boo-hoo, get free housing. Yeah, they even wanted a free hotel in New York City. Okay, just I lied. I'm doing more questions. I think their kids will regret in the future about them. They only cry about their past. Yes. Everybody have a great weekend. Bye, guys. Good night. Thank you guys for being here. And maybe we'll all go on a trip to Germany and Austria together. Maybe. I'll let you know about that next time.